Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
This past week's episode of AEW Dynamite saw the go-home angle for next week's Blood and Guts match, where the Inner Circle and the Pinnacle had an epic parlay segment featuring amazing promos from the likes of Dax Harwood, MJF, and Chris Jericho. However, for as big as this match may feel, and probably end up being, there may be some trouble brewing underneath the surface. The Pinnacle's Sean Spears was recently interviewed by WrestleTalk's very own Louis Dangoor, where he hinted that there may be legitimate heat between some members of the two factions. Sometimes in wrestling, you're going to meet guys and work with guys that you just don't get along with. No matter what, you don't see eye to eye. I'm not going to name any names, I'm not going to say anything more other than there are guys in this match on May 5th that legitimately don't like each other. The match certainly isn't short on outspoken personalities, so it wouldn't be surprising if this turned out to be true. However, this could also very well just be Spears attempting to build more hype for the match next week. What do you think? Is this real, or is Spears working the fans? Let me know in the comments, because I'll be replying to people in the comments from out of nowhere. But while AEW may have recently built relationships with the likes of Impact and New Japan, it seems WWE may be thinking along similar lines. WWE isn't exactly known for working well with other wrestling promotions, for a long time even refusing to acknowledge any promotions existed in the world other than WWE, which is why it was such a big deal when we saw the smallest of things such as Dixie Carter on a WWE documentary or Chris Jericho talking about AEW on the Broken Skull sessions. However, that may be about to change, as according to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE are in talks with MLW, and it's along the lines of the old Evolve deal, or to a degree the 90s ECW deal. The idea is to get some of the developmental guys who aren't working on NXT television some work. The reason for this sudden change of heart is apparently because of AEW, with Meltzer continuing, the idea is people see AEW having partnerships with New Japan, Impact, and AAA, and they want to make it look like WWE is not set in its old ways and uncooperative in the real world. However, PW Insider is reporting the opposite, saying in regard to rumors of MLW and WWE in discussions, there are no current talks ongoing. The only real exception to WWE's partnerships in recent years has been with the likes of WXW, ICW, Evolve, and Progress, which had content added to the WWE network. But something that probably won't be added to the WWE network anytime soon is an all-women's brand of WWE programming, which was something the recently released Mickie James pitched to backstage management before being promptly turned down. However, the conversation regarding this all-women's brand has now opened up online, involving some big names. It's no secret that there is a major appetite for women's wrestling in North America. The desire for a second Evolution pay-per-view from WWE has been passionate among fans and talent alike. And now WWE Hall of Famer Mick Foley has taken it a step further, saying WWE needs an all-female brand. Foley tweeted yesterday, "Dear Vince, an all-women's brand needs to happen in WWE unless you want AEW to beat you to the punch. Sincerely, Mick." An all-women's brand has been shown to be successful in promotions like Stardom, but in WWE, where the roster have traditionally been mixed, former WWE star Lance Storm didn't think this was such a good idea, responding to Foley's tweet, voicing his concerns that an all-women show could feel like a demotion. Would the women no longer be on Raw and SmackDown? I think this is a much more complicated decision. If the women, especially the top women, remain on Raw and SmackDown, then the all-women show will struggle. If the all-women show is on a lesser platform, it will feel like a demotion. Former WWE star Maria Kanellis joined WrestleTalk's own Luke Owen and Denise Salcedo on yesterday's WrestleTalk podcast episode, where she did not hold back on WWE for not producing a second Evolution event, saying, "WWE has so many pointless pay-per-views, and you have the chance to do a pay-per-view empowering women, and you don't do it? I don't understand how someone like Stephanie McMahon can deal with that." Evolution, I was told, was never going to happen again because the management didn't like it, which made me very sad because since the beginning of my career 17 years ago, I just know that fans clamor for women's wrestling. But now it's time for a review of last night's episode of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. This week's show opened with the SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair, who started to cut a promo but was interrupted by the Dirty Dogs of Rude and Ziggler. Their promo was interrupted by the Street Profits, and their promo was interrupted by Bayley. Cool. Bayley then didn't say anything but laughed like a maniac at Bianca and the Street Profits, much like she did last week. Can anyone explain the joke to me here? Last week it was like a, ha, got you, tricked you, and this week she was laughing because She interrupted them? Good one, Bailey. After that incredibly convoluted setup, we got ourselves a 6-person tag match with the Street Profits and Belair versus the Dirty Dogs and Bailey. The match itself was quite fun, with some nice action throughout. The finish was especially nice, with Bianca using the hair whip on Rude, leading to Ford being able to hit a springboard frog splash for the victory. After this came a recap of Nia Jax versus Tamina, which was essentially the entire match from last week. Backstage, Nia and Shayna complain that Natalya and Tamina have beaten them in singles competition, not a tag match, so they're going to show them why they're the tag champions. And following Tamina beginning to be pushed as a babyface after her frankly baffling reaction from the live crowd at WrestleMania, Natalya and Tamina then beat up Nia and Shayna after their interview backstage. What baby faces? The tag match itself, well, let's do the positives first. I think this was probably the best match any combination of these people have had thus far in this feud. The pace was good, and it kept up through the whole affair. The negatives, there were so many distractions. There was half of a story in the middle of the match where Shayna was looking for a tag, but Nia was selling on the outside with Reginald, so she wasn't there, which the commentary team played up as a big deal. Ooh, Nia and Shayna not on the same page. Nia got a tag in like 30 seconds after, and it was no big deal. Y'all ever heard of Chekhov's gun? Don't include stuff as part of a story if you're not going to pay it off. Tamina eventually hit the splash for the win, but it was in a non-title match, so I guess they'll be fighting again for the titles soon? Rey and Dominic Mysterio backstage say they want to be the first father-son tag team champions before we got chapter 2 of Aleister Black's book, Reality. This promo can essentially be summed up with, "We live in a society," with Black saying how the right college and the 3-bed house with the white picket fence is a lie, but father never told him such lies. He could tell you how to escape from your hell, but he won't. I'm still into this, and the art style of these segments is still absolutely gorgeous. After that came another WrestleMania rematch, with Big E facing Apollo Crews for the Intercontinental Championship. This was another really good match, with both showing why they deserve proper time for matches. The story was good, the action was good, the pace was good, so naturally Commander Aziz caused a DQ after Big E hit a big ending. I honestly don't know what I expected. Kevin Owens came down to try and beat up Aziz following the Nigerian nail to him last week, and as Big E and Owens started fighting together, Sami Zayn came from out of nowhere to hit a hoover kick on Owens. Zayn picked up the Intercontinental Championship and tried to make peace with Crews, playing babyface and handing the title back to him, but Aziz hit him with the Nigerian nail anyway. After the tension between Owens and Big E last week and the nail to Zayn this week, it looks like we're heading into a fatal 4-way at Backlash for the title between Crews, Big E, Owens, and Zayn, and I'm all for it. All of the characters now have a bit of history together, or a lot in some cases, and it should make for an interesting match. And finally, we got to the main event of the show, Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan for the Universal Championship. And if Bryan loses, he'd be banished from SmackDown. There was so much hype for this match through the show, with various people giving their thoughts such as Cesaro, Rollins, Woods, Kingston, and Booker T, and there was an absolutely amazing promo from Paul Heyman beforehand as well, where in Absolute Wrestling Booking 101, he put over all of Daniel Bryan's accomplishments before saying that he won't withstand the onslaught from the Tribal Chief. After showing Bryan's biggest highlight of them all, his 2 wins at WrestleMania 30, the pair make their entrances and Roman Reigns finally has new music. You know, there's definitely some interesting instrument choices in there, but I don't immediately hate it, and I think it'll definitely grow on me. It's not bad at all. And this match, Reigns and Bryan essentially just put on a pay-per-view level match, but on SmackDown. Ad breaks be damned, the two just went out and told a fantastic story. As soon as we came back from an ad break, oh god, there's a near fall, there's so much going on. Reigns just managed to get his foot on the rope from a running knee. Bryan kicked out of the spear. And after working over Reigns' right arm for the whole match, Bryan blocked the guillotine from Reigns on his right side. So he switched it over to his left arm, catching Bryan by surprise and making him pass out for the clean victory. This was an absolutely outstanding match, made even better by the fact that there was not one iota of a distraction in it. Reigns is just that good, he won clean. After the match, Reigns grabs 2 chairs, setting Bryan up for a concerto, but Cesaro runs out to make the save. But in a nice subversion of expectations, Jey Uso comes out and beats up Cesaro and ties him up in the ropes as Reigns grabs the chair and forces Cesaro to watch as he hits Bryan with the concerto anyway. What a great end to the show. So that was the show. Let me know what you thought in the comments, and don't forget to vote in our poll on a poll match on our community tab on YouTube, where 76% of you voted for Reigns versus Bryan was amazing, as opposed to the 24% of you that voted for Bryan versus Reigns was amazing. The whole main event of SmackDown was a home run segment, an absolutely awesome pay-per-view caliber match that delivered on its hype. The rest of the show was fine, I guess. There wasn't anything actively terrible, and hell, even the women's tag match was probably the best match the 4 of them have put on. So I guess that means this show gets a 5 out of 5. Like a low 5 out of 5, if that's even a thing. It's very close to being a 4, but good god, that main event was so good. In the latest episode of Board Game Club, the gang plays Quiplash with the voice of Mercy from Overwatch, Lucy Pohl. Press the video on the right to watch that now, and press the video below that to find out more about a crazy match that was scrapped from a Saudi Arabia WWE show. Don't forget to subscribe here for daily wrestling news videos, and check out mine and Tempest podcast review of SmackDown later today on the WrestleTalk podcast channel. I've been Corporate Chopper. Jam that jam.